didn't get along with the owner, and then you didn't get along with the owner, and then you didn't get along with the owner, and then you didn't get along with the owner. Like at some point, you have to look at yourself and say, how am I part of this equation as well?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of the Jaded Mechanic podcast. With me today, very good friends of the podcast. They are people coming from Promotive, our good friends at Promotive, who support us in such a great way. I have Miss Kat Ayers and Brian Burris with me today. How are you guys?
Good.
How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I've had a pleasant day. Like I was just saying before we got on air, I took my dog, my little dog, to the groomer, which is always an episode because she doesn't like the groomers. She doesn't really like anybody but me. And she has she's only a little 6-pound Maltese mix. So we make a very odd pairing when I carry this little white tiny purse dog in everywhere I go, right? Because almost 300-pound, big, burly, bearded mechanic with this little purse dog. But so it's been an ordeal because I thought, I warned you guys, technology and me is not always the best friends. I thought my appointment was at 9:30. I show up at 9:15, habitually early like I am. And they're like, no, I don't have you on the books here till 11:30. Okay, now I got to go kill 2 hours. So her and I just drove around and did some stuff and then come back and it was all good. But I mean, it's like, yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit of a forced break. So good for you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the beauty of my job. It's only Monday to Thursday. So, and I never would have thought that would be such a key thing going forward into, potential shops and whatever. It was just an added bonus. I didn't expect when I did the interview, it wasn't in the posting that, hey, we're only open 4 days a week. So when I get there and I'm like, what? You mean every weekend's a long weekend? Sign me up. So you guys see that a lot, right? You're seeing lots of people coming at the industry with different ways of kind of enticing us. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually. So I spoke with somebody today. They're out in Dallas. So they're doing half day on Friday. So 7:30 to 12. They're trying to get to the point where they can get their production up throughout the week, Monday through Thursday, where they can actually close on Friday. But, when I started off in the industry, we were 7 days a week. So this blows my mind when it's a 4-day week with these shops. Yeah.
Now, when you say started in the industry, Brian, can you give us a little background?
So again, like you said earlier, it's the passion, for automotive. And I've always had that. My dad and I started off working on cars in the driveway. And throughout high school, I just started changing oil, doing the tires, starting at the bottom. And I fell in love with it. I was going to school for pre-med, and here I am in automotive my whole life. And I couldn't be happier. So, started turning wrenches, learning more, and then was with Firestone and another big nationwide company out there too. And then I got on board with Napa about 13 years ago and started off there and managed a large district out in the Midwest. So, but here I am at Promotive.
Yeah.
I love the actual recruiting part of the business too, of finding good techs, because I know how hard it is. Throughout my years, it's just been a struggle. So being part of that and helping techs find jobs, and also, shops finding that right person with the culture, that's a huge thing.
Now, I got to ask you, that's a real different jump off to go from pre-med to automotive. And you said you started it with your father. So traditionally, sometimes we meet a lot of technicians or people in the industry, period, and they go, I've worked for a shop owner. He's like, my kid's not going to do this. My kid's not going to work on that. My own father was a auto body collision guy, and he hated the idea that I was going to be a mechanic. Hated it. Said, you're crazy. Why would you ever want to do that? Do you not? And I'm like, you sand cars. Like, I'm going to make the cars go fast, right? Like, I'm going to eclipse you, Dad. Don't worry about it. Boy, was I ever wrong sometimes. Like the things that he warned me about was still there. So did your dad look at you like, why are you crazy for not following through on pre-med?
No, I mean, so both my parents were in the medical field their entire lives. So, they've always supported me on whatever I wanted to do, but my dad saw my passion for it, and they just encouraged it.
Yeah, that's good. Kat, what about you?
Yeah, so I came into the automotive industry via technology. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for kind of a larger technology company called Velo. They acquire a number of other technology companies, so SMSs, DVIs, etc. And so many of your listeners, I'm sure, use those
Mm-hmm.
technologies and love those technologies. And so that's how I came into the industry. And of course, you fall in love once you get in here, you fall in love,
Yeah.
right? You go to SEMA one time and you talk to people and you see this like amazing passion. You can probably look back to when I was like in elementary school. My favorite job was to be a race car driver. I
Mm-hmm.
still really like to drive fast.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's some deep roots there somewhere. But yeah, I came in through technology. And then, you know, I met folks like Joelle, who's one of our co-founders, and
Mm-hmm.
Lisa. Met them, huge passion in the industry and really helping, you know, not only shop owners. I think this is our bigger leap into the, you know, technician space, is really saying, you know, what are we doing to serve the technicians that are actually powering this industry? And
Yeah.
that's where Promotive came in. It's a critical, it's critical need, and we gotta do better by all of the technicians out there. So yeah, I came on with Lisa and the team, and I do operations. I do HR and finance and all that good stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
one of my big passions is data, and Brian and I are going to talk a little bit more today about how folks can really own their own data and how
Yeah.
powerful that is when they're in the job market. You know, when they're asking for that raise, whatever it is. I mean, data is very powerful, and we just want to, you know, encourage your listeners to own their data, and that meaning their statistics and their metrics and all that good stuff. And we'll talk some more about that.
Yeah. I admit, I'm self-admitted, I am not somebody that is up to date on, not up to date. I mean, I kind of know what the numbers mean, but it's like whenever I've gone through and done an interview, you know, people that listen to me a lot know that, like, you're not going to see, if you say, show me your production numbers, you're not going to get blown away. You're not going to get the true story of what it is, that what I am and what I can do. I've always challenged with, it's like, I've got notebooks that I could show you, like wacky, weird, complex diags. I can show you the work orders and stuff, that and the process that I went through to that, but my numbers don't ever reflect that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, as I'm aging out now, and I'm seeing all these things that people are talking about, you got to know your numbers, you got to know your numbers, you got to know your numbers. It's like I'm playing catch up again with that. You know,
Yeah.
like it's like trying to get on board with that. Kind of give us, because we all know the big one, right? You want to know what's your production, right? What are your average on that? We all kind of know what that, but can you touch on some other ones, guys?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the big one is production, flag
Mhm.
versus turn hours. You know, being able to, excuse me, being able to have some kind of data that you can take in front of somebody, like Kat had mentioned. You know, when we have a technician that we're interviewing, we'll ask, you know, how many hours a week are you turning? But
Mhm.
they can say 80, they can say 100.
Right.
We're never going to know that. But if you
Yeah.
actually look at that data and you can provide that to us, that's another selling point, especially when we're selling the candidate
Mhm.
to the shop. So again, going back to knowing your numbers, there's other aspects too. ARO, right? That's a
Yeah.
big one. We want to see, you know, a shop owner was going to want to see, what are you recommending, you know, when a car comes in.
Mhm.
So not only just for the service advisor, I mean, that's a big one for the service advisors, correct? How much can you sell?
Yeah.
But how much is the technician actually recommending? You know, you're not just pencil whipping the inspection.
Yeah.
DVI
That's,
completion is another one.
yeah.
So
Because I can tell you from a former dealership tech, a lot of that was a pencil whip. A lot of it was like, and it's set up for you because your service maintenance interval is set up that way. You know, like a 20,000 kilometer. I'm Canadian, so it'll be metric. 20,000 kilometer service is this. A 40,000 is that. We could tell you to the T what each service paid. You're like, you know, it was just, so if you got one in around 100,000 K. You know, I remember my time at Hyundai, it was like if you got a service 4, that was like a front and rear brake service, a timing belt, you know, a fuel induction service, depending on maybe how it might have been a spark plug. That was your morning. You know what I mean? Like your day was already handled for one part of it anyway, with one dispatch. It was great. Now I'm seeing that is going away. And then I'm seeing it's like the DVI thing is very new for me. And it's like, so a lot more thorough inspections have to be done in order to find the work. I mean, the work's still there, but it's like now how we have to go and document it is even more critical. You know, it's not it's not an obstacle for me, but I talk to a lot of people that are like, I'm struggling with it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and again, you guys both mentioned knowing the numbers is important. And to your point, I think, Jeff, that it's not the total story,
Mm-hmm.
but it is such a big part of the story. And it's a big part of the story even post hire. So the numbers can help us not only sell the candidate at the higher rate or the higher bump once they hit their productivity thresholds, et cetera. It can help us sell the candidate. But should things, not work out quite the right way, then, the the technician actually knows, like, well, was it me? Was it them? Did they
Mm-hmm.
not have the car count? And by the way, like, asking in the other direction is totally appropriate.
Yeah.
So if you're interviewing at a location and they're saying, oh, well, we have the car count, we're definitely overworked. You also can ask for those numbers. I
Mm-hmm.
need to see that they have the car count so that I can turn the numbers that I need so that I can make the money that I'm expecting to make, right? They can, anyone can dangle any number in front of you, but if you
Yeah.
can't hit those hours, you'll never get paid that amount.
Yeah.
And so I'd say the numbers are really just, they're a piece of the puzzle, but they're an important piece because they're just very powerful when it comes to that negotiating. But again, I would say, don't hesitate, especially if you're working with a recruiter, one of our recruiters, or anyone else. You can ask those questions too. You can get that information from the shop owner. And you'll be able to tell the difference, right? If a shop owner can't answer those things with
Mm-hmm.
some sort of data,
I was just
you got
gonna
the guy who's going to be able to, like, make sure you're getting what you need from a compensation perspective. So
I was just gonna ask you that. So when you sit down now with some owners or people that are in the hiring position and you say to them, have these numbers ready for the tech, does some of them still look at you like you're crazy? I'm not going to share that with them.
No, I mean, even part of when we meet with the shop initially for the first time, we do ask those questions. How many cars are you seeing a week? What's your average tech how many hours he's turning a week?
Yeah.
And obviously they're pretty honest with us. They're upfront on the back end of it. And we do share that with the technician too, that we're interviewing, and their service advisor. So we always get that information provided to them too.
Right.
And a lot of times we do have technicians that they're asking those questions. How many hours are they actually turning? What's their car count? And that's impressive to see. And we do notate that, on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I communicate that to the shop owner.
Yeah. Because my tradition always was, like, especially from the dealership standpoint, because up here, flat rate in a non-dealer environment isn't as common. As I'll say, this is what I see talking to people that work on the other side of the border. I don't know if it's the rust factor or what up here, size or what, but it's like, I can remember for years, it was like, if you never saw an independent pay flat rate up here at all, the only people that were paying flat rate were like chain stores and dealerships. That was it. So, and I'm still not seeing flat rate come on real big now. But I can remember, like, it used to be that you would go and do the interview and they dangle, oh, you're going to turn 60 hours a week. Oh, we got car count coming out of our butt, And then but you would go in, you'd move your toolbox into your bay, and they'd immediately, it was like, or even when you're walking through, right? You've got a shirt and tie on, you walk through the back service area and he's showing you around. You can just see all eyes are on you, right? And you're like, what's that? What's that about? And because I've talked about this before, sometimes you're getting brought in to replace somebody that doesn't even know they're going out yet, right? And then sometimes that person, why they're going out, is either because they can't produce. So what I started to do is, if I was going to go work in a place like that, I already had to know somebody that worked there before. So I got the real scoop, the skinny on what was going on, because they can tell you truth out. It's like, because they'll say, I got a tech downstairs that turns 60 hours every week. Well, yeah, one tech turned 60 hours.
Let me talk to him.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'd be like, cool, let me go talk to him.
Yeah.
And it would always go two ways. It would be the one guy that had all the certs and all the training and got, like, really taken care of. Or it was like this old piece of wood in the back who got fed everything because, like, if they didn't feed him, he had all the certs and then their warranty claims couldn't get done. right?
Right.
So there was always two sides to that. So it was an interesting mix. Now, what I love is the fact that we've come on so far on technology that it's like you can do a key search, find somebody that probably worked in that or talk to a tool guy or something like that. What's the real going on over there? And they'll tell you flat out, right? But I can remember walking in there, who's this guy? Why is he here? So the last couple of jobs, I've always tried to know somebody in the building if I was going to go work in that flat rate thing. I'm not anti-flat rate. I did it for years. I don't have a problem with it. It's got to be, so many irons have to be perfectly aligned before it works. I'll say that for sure. I've seen it go off the rails too many times. I've seen whole shops that don't produce because, you start to needle down on the people. Like, oh, can you just do that for free? Can you just do that for free? And then all of a sudden it's like they have no motivation to turn hours because they feel no matter what they do, it don't work. And then you've got a whole bunch of people that it's like you can't motivate them because they don't trust. You bring in a new manager, you bring in a new advisor, they don't trust that they're still going to get treated better. So it's tough. It's tough. So we talk about production. ARO, can we kind of touch on that a little bit? Because that's something that, like, from the tech standpoint, I don't see how I have a big factor in the ARO except to do the DVI.
Right. So absolutely. I mean, like you said, you don't, as a technician, you really don't. You're relying on that service advisor. But one thing you need to look at too, we'll touch back on the inspection process. Are you actually recommending the services that need to be done?
Right. Yeah.
If you're pencil whipping it and you're just blowing through the DVI or even the paper inspections like we used to do back in the day, you're doing a disservice for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're not giving the service advisor a chance. So AROs, right? We can't as technicians control that, but have a goal, right? Make sure you're actually doing the DVIs 100%. I don't know how many times I've seen inspection papers come up in the, from the L1 tech and you didn't sell anything. Well, you didn't put anything on the ticket.
Yeah.
How many times have I gone back and given it to them? It's like, come on, I know you pencil whipped this one. So, do yourself a favor and actually do the inspections and then, put the ball in the service advisor's court. That's their job to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. I got to shut my window. My doggy's barking.
I was just making sure that nobody could hear my dog snoring.
Sorry about that. She gets a little. She's feisty. So let me ask you, because that's an interesting thing. So we've heard some people have detractors against the DVI and the 300% rule and so on and so forth about in the industry, where it's like you can overwhelm the customer with all that. You can really seem like everything is like upsell city. You're not necessarily addressing the complaint the car came in for, so on and so forth. Like my shop, traditionally, we get a lot of cars with a complaint, not of a, like, I'm here for an oil change and what else are we going to sell? Whereas at the dealership, they were worried about they're doing their maintenance to protect their warranty. And, we talked about, they've got the scheduled service intervals. Some customers just want an oil change. Some customers want the full jam, Does it work both ways though? When you're dealing with recruiting for a dealership versus, say, recruiting for a smaller, I want to say, breakdown style shop versus a forward thinking maintenance shop?
I mean, so we're really in the independent, the independently owned shop market right now. And you do have those technicians that are, been customized and tailored to the dealership where everything's on a platter. I mean, let's call it what it is, but it's a little bit easier. You're not having to go find work.
Yeah.
That's a spot where we're not in yet with the dealerships again, but you do have technicians that don't want to be in the dealership anymore. They want to work on different makes and models. So get out of the
right. But also, I think it is important to think about the difference in the ability to turn that many cars, turn that many hours, turn that many jobs, because they are similar jobs over and over again, which is, it causes the boredom, but it also causes a bit of a change management issue, so to speak. I'll just call it that because I don't have a better term for it. When somebody is trying to transition to an independent dealership, right? So to Brian's point, they didn't have to go hunt. for their work, right? Their
Yeah.
work was kind of planned, scheduled. There are a lot of front office people. They don't have to necessarily talk to a client or a customer ever. Sometimes in an independent, you end up trying to explain something,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So I think it can cause a little bit of a transition. I think our account managers, certainly with our company, really try to take that into account when they're looking at fit for somebody going in both directions. But I think it's a good call out that the type of job matters, the things that you can control. Meaning, if you're in the back, you're the DVI and you're trying to get the information up to the service advisor, your relationship with the service advisor is what you're showing off there.
Sure.
You might not be able to increase the arrow specifically, but your relationship with the service advisor is also then helping them to ideally upsell. So it speaks to the relationship. Again, the data is speaking to some portion of the story. And that just might be, while I can't write up the RO myself, because I have such a great relationship with my service advisor, I'm able to talk to him more kind of crisply about why he should stress this job versus this job
Right.
with the customer, which can help in the long run drive up arrow. So I think it's a lot of those points are super valid, and they're points that we certainly try to take into consideration. I think these are good reminders from the technician level, like how do we normalize for that? How do we prepare people for interviews to ask the right questions around those types of things, et cetera?
It's a crucial relationship, the advisor and technician. I know my best partner I ever had at a dealership was an advisor that I knew. Like, he'd go to war for me and I'd go to war for him. I was willing to help him out with a problem car, with a problem customer, because I knew that he would put me out in front then to make sure that I got taken care of in return. Like, it was you scratch my back, I scratch yours type scenario, right?
Yeah.
I think that's getting lost a lot lately now with and I don't know why. And I've I borrow a lot of arrows for that. A lot of people, oh, you're so and so's favorite tech. No, that car came back 4 times. Nobody else could fix it. Nobody else wanted to. I fixed it. Now that customer only wants me.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can build that within the business. So it's a weird dynamic, because I've also had advisors that it's like, I wanted to choke, you know what I mean? Or they didn't want to pay me, or so, we'll make it up on the next one type thing. That running joke in the industry. And Brian, I've heard lots of technicians, I've interviewed lots of technicians, and they talk about, give me some insight from the Firestone perspective. What's like, were you able to have that kind of relationship with advisors there? Or is it kind of, because it's a corporate thing, is it a little more squared off on what is not allowed?
You actually have that relationship still with the guys in the back, right? We're working side by side with them. I'm going to go out there and talk to the technician before I present this to the customer, get a better understanding of what I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
How do I explain it to the customer in layman's terms? But I think even with the corporate structure, you're still going to have that relationship, that one-on-one with the service advisor and the tech. So
I struggled, because I had one guy, who was, like I said, I trust him with my life. And then I had other ones that were like, they had a little bit of a sleazy sales, used car salesman kind of vibe, where they would say one thing but not always come through completely, right? And I think that's the big limiting factor when I hear, because we've seen it, like we've seen the conversations with, no advisor should make more money than a technician, and technicians are dirt and advisors are what make the wheels go around. I think that sometimes comes from both sides, where we don't have people qualified really in the role that they're in. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I have a bunch of people that I'm forced to dispatch work that maybe isn't to their strengths in the back shop. And then we have the other technicians that go, listen, I can fix anything you bring in here. I just need you to be able to sell the time it takes me to do the job to the standards that you want done. That seems to be the rub all the time, right? Is we can't get always a cohesive unit of what's going on there. I think flat rate sometimes plays into why that doesn't happen. It's too scared to sell the time. And then you have the other tech on the other side. It's like, I went down a rabbit hole on this diag, and now I don't know what to do because I'm not getting paid, right? Like, it's a tough thing. How do you work around that?
So I lived by this term back in the day. I didn't buy it,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't build it, and I didn't break it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, let's be honest here. It's our job is to inform the customer to make them aware of what's going on. Obviously, you're in their pocket, their car's in the
Mhm.
shop, and it's broken, but you just have to be honest with them of, this is what it really needs, and
Yeah.
the time that it's going to take to figure out what it is. So we're not just slapping parts on the car and
Yeah.
and wasting your money, wasting our tech's time, or even the parts companies delivering parts down there. So being able to explain what we do during a diagnosis
Mm-hmm.
of that particular thing, I think helps. And like you said, you get the shady car salesman guys out there. What we really try to do is match that culture to the shop, and that's a big part of it too. So we want to match the service advisor to the tech, and vice versa.
Yeah.
We want to fit that, so we don't have that disconnect between the shop and the front office.
Mm-hmm. So kind of give me another critical number that I'm not thinking about, because like when I was sitting here going through this morning, I was like, well, if somebody asked me, a numbers kind of thing, I could tell them that like I don't take 10 sick days a year. But I mean, what's some other numbers that the tech needs to be more aware of?
A lot of, just thinking back recently, what do we all do when we go to buy something or we go to a restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
We look at reviews, right? Everybody's a review driven business now. One thing I got thinking of too is, how many reviews do you get from that customer that call you out online, where everybody at the shop by name? How do you do that? How do you reward your tech for doing a exceptional job?
Yeah,
that's another way to look at it too, because one, technician's going to get rewarded if we get a review, right? Let's buy them lunch or something.
Mm-hmm.
Give them an Amazon gift card. But also that's going to benefit the shop. So that's another measure. If I had a review, I could go on Google and it mentions me specifically.
Right.
And I'm going into, hey, bam, look at this. This is what I could do for your shop too.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So that's one thing I think about too.
Yeah. Social media has really changed that too, because it's like the last employer I had before coming here was the first employer that ever had me like in Facebook videos. You know what I mean? Or Facebook posts by picture and by name. I mean, there was my bald head working on something, so I would have never thought in 98 when I started doing this, that would ever be a thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. That we would see me in a Facebook post.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would even add on to that a little bit more. When I think about, I come from a technology background. So, I had a manager and I had quarterly check-ins or quarterly reviews or annual reviews. And, in those kind of very bigger formalized companies, they're formalized and they're in a system and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can write a self-review anytime you want to. Mm-hmm. And included in that self-review can be, what are your numbers for this quarter, and what were the particularly interesting jobs that you worked on, and think about how could you work with a service advisor to get more of those. It feels odd the first time you do it. But I would say, again, these are just little scorecards and little nuggets that you just write it down, you put it away. And when you're interested in looking for a new job, when you're interested in having a conversation with your current manager about a pay increase or something like that, you have documentation of your Google reviews. Brian just brought up you've got trends, even if it's just once a quarter, you pull your averages, right? You have trends over time of your average RO going up and things like that. So what are the other things that you would want a manager to tell you? You can do a self-review. You can also ask your manager for a review, and particularly if you have a good relationship, I think those are good things to ask for. But, if you don't have such a great relationship, you can do a self-evaluation of what you did and didn't like about your working environment, so that, again, if you decide to look for, a change or a move to a different shop, you're not like trying to think in the heat of the moment of all the things that you love or hate. Rather, you've kept up over time. And I learned this the hard way. I asked a boss about 15 years ago for, I'd say, a significant raise. I did compensation for part of the company, so I knew what other people were making with my title, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked for a raise, and he I felt like patted me on the head and said, "Oh, good puppy,"
Yeah.
right, and like kind of shooed me away. Well, when I came back the next year, I had like a 9-page self evaluation with every bit of data throughout the year of projects I had worked on, of revenue I'd found or saved, or billings that had been corrected, or whatever those things were that mattered. Um, and I had a whole slew of data. And so that conversation was like a no brainer. Like, what's he going to say? I have a year's worth of data in front of me.
Yeah.
So, again, I'd say those are ways that, as a technician, you can really own your data, your information, own your career. Again, I will always plug our company to support you in any way we can, but like, you can do this on your own with a Google document and, and basic typing skills. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. I have a good friend, fellow podcaster, Joshua Taylor, and he instructs a lot of his young people that he's kind of nurturing into the industry to journal.
Yeah.
Journal what they do, journal what they solve. And so for me, way back when, what kind of set me on the path of not against production, but where production to me, it's a trigger word. It's because like I kept photocopies of the work orders of the cars that came back that I had to fix. Right. So then I had this stack, like I had a 200-page notebook equivalent of work orders and handwritten notes on it, what I had to do, where the fault was. This is before cell phones, right? We're going back like pre Y2K. And so when it became time and it's like we had to part ways, somebody didn't understand my numbers because my numbers were not documented. I was the guy that went to, when the car come back, here, fix this. And there was a lot of unapplied time, a lot of unbilled time, right? Just fix the car, make it right. Cool. No problem. I can do that. I was paid hourly. When I then submitted this to them and said, here's this, they kind of had mouth open, eyes wide. And I was thinking about that today because I was like, I would love to still have that book. Like I left it sitting on the desk. And in hindsight for me this morning, as we're thinking about this, is like, I should have picked it up and taken it with me because it'd be so cool to go back on it now and look. And, some things I would have been so proud of at the time of fixing that. And now it's like every tech that's worked on that product line is like, oh yeah, that's common. Like we do that all the time. But I was one of the first to find it. You know what I mean? Like spliced S236 buried underneath the carpet that's all green and corroded. I was the first one in my area to find that. Now there's a bulletin about it, but that was me. That's kind of what I tell techs all the time.
Yeah.
Documentation is so important. It's one thing to just like fixed car, repaired wire. Like you got to go more than that now, because it's like when I'm selling myself to an employer, and that's what a lot of it is. It's selling, but it's me interviewing the business. I don't look at it as they're interviewing me. I look at it as straight up as like they need me more than I need them. Unfortunately, with the technician shortage the way it is. So I need to really flesh them out. So I'll go in there and I'll say, I've taken this course. I've fixed this technology. I've fixed that technology. What do you do when those kind of cars come in? And sometimes they roll right through with it. And other times they look at me like, wow. Well, then that kind of, wow, you're not there yet. I have to look at it and go, okay, maybe I'm not going to get the stimulus there from this job that I got from the previous one. And I have to maybe make a lateral shift to where I'm not going to fix so much. I'm just going to produce here. Or are they hiring me to bring in that level? That's the other thing too, right? It's tricky. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Choosing that career path also, what's interesting to you, I think is hard. And it's hard to reflect on that again without having, to your point, a journal or something where you can look back and say, oh, those times where I got to coach other people and teach them how to fix, those were more interesting to me. I can see those were more interesting to me than the times where I had to be head down by myself, just fixing away. Right. So now I know that I really like to collaborate. So when I'm, looking at my next role, I can say, I really like to collaborate. So when I'm evaluating that shop, to your point, the technician is interviewing the shop as much as the shop is interviewing the technician. You can ask those questions. You should ask another tech or another service advisor, what does the collaboration look like here? Are you, it's like everybody likes to say, we do pizza once a month or whatever, but like, do you like choose to eat lunch together sometimes? Like, do you do you truly like each other? Like, I mean, when we go on some of our company trips, like Brian and I stay in the same house. There are like 12 of us in the same house. We like each other enough that we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, not that everyone has to be like, but I do think if that's the thing that makes you happy in what you're doing, then you got to focus on that and you have to make sure it's part of your culture. So,
I think
and
that's
it's different for everyone.
I think it's very telling because like the running joke used to be if you want to take a room in the dealership and build it that nobody will sit in, make it a lunchroom for the techs. Because they do not want to sit together and break bread like a couple will,
Yeah.
but like it's you really quickly know um, who you don't want to be around. And it was the same thing. Like I never saw a service advisor come in and sit and eat lunch, hardly ever with a technician. Too many times. I mean, when I worked at the Nissan dealer, we would do that, but very quickly it became like the one advisor that everybody liked. She left. The next one that kind of came in, you could kind of see like the dynamic in the room shift, and it wasn't like it was not welcoming. It was just like, okay, this person really isn't a fit here,
Yeah.
right? So all of a sudden, it's like the technicians. Because let's be real, I'll say it. If that person just gave away a bunch of your labor in that morning,
Yeah.
you don't want
That
to sit
doesn't feel
across the
good.
table from them and eat. You'd rather reach across the table and like take their food or choke them or something. So smear the pie all over their face. So I mean that's very telling, and I've seen that online with different techs that I've talked to and shop owners where they see them they're having lunch together once a week, and it's like somebody catered something in, or there's the running joke is the pizza is the new inside joke in the industry, and it a pizza party is. But I think it's very key if you can get everybody to sit down and kind of like in a circle or relatively close, like yeah, if you got a guy and he grabs two slices and goes back over his toolbox,
Yeah.
that's that person. I mean, I can't say that he's a problem or she's a problem because I don't know. I'm not in that dynamic, right? But I see that a lot, and then I see the other ones, and it's like, man, I wish I had that. It's I'm jealous of places where they can sit together and they can do it. I think it's if you're going to spend money on marketing or you're going to spend money sometimes, I think on just feeding your staff. I think sometimes the feeding staff can be a better turnaround. You know what I
Absolutely.
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
We've had goals before, hit a certain number or
Mhm.
ARO for the week, and we're not having a pizza party. I mean, we're getting fajitas or
Yeah,
whatever catered in. It's
yeah,
good stuff. So
yeah.
we all strive to hit that. And like you said, you have those techs that go out to their toolbox and will just stand there and eat. But the shop I was at, we literally, I mean, we were still answering phones and everything, but
Mhm.
we came together inside. Guys could come inside and cool down, and
Yeah,
we sat around and just BS'd.
yeah.
We had that good culture in that shop.
That's
So
that's key. When we talk about shop culture, do you is there red flags that you see? Like, because I used to always be worried about when people would look at my resume and they go, I must look like a red flag to them when they're hiring me because it's like, he's had 10 jobs in 7 years or 5 jobs in 10 years or whatever. Well, this technician doesn't stay around anywhere. Like, is there key markers you guys look at when you're looking at somebody to place them? Or is there things that kind of stand out that you kind of go, I wonder? Or do you kind of like give me some feedback on that because I that's fascinating for me from the tech standpoint, right?
yeah, Kat, I don't know if you want to touch on it. I can too. I see it every day. So
Yeah, you
I see
got
red
Brian,
flags.
you go ahead. I'll follow on to you.
It is like you said, it's the job hoppy.
Mm-hmm.
Having multiple jobs, and we're not going to discredit somebody looking at their resume. Can they explain it though?
Oh yeah,
Right? It's not, oh, I didn't get along with the guy at the shop or they didn't have enough car count. We understand that's going to happen. But what did you do to increase your productivity? Did you do anything there? Can you explain it
mm-hmm.
in a nutshell? Why did you have 20 jobs over the last 6 months?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it is hard, and I can imagine being in the technician's shoes. Like, there's money across the
Mm-hmm.
street. There's money down the next town over, and so I can very much appreciate that that's real. That's real money for families. That's real money for the community, and that. So I don't ever discount somebody for making a choice like that for their family.
Yeah.
A couple of things I think that I would call out. Number one, look at total compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Total compensation is really important. And I understand that hourly pay is number one. How much cash are you taking home? It is for all of us, right? Number
Yeah.
one. what cash am I taking home to pay my bills? So I think that's super important. But you do have to look at paid time off. When do you get that paid time off? How often do you get that paid time off? Does the shop close the week of, for us, the 4th of July, for you guys, Canada Day, whatever
Yeah.
that, you know, and are you paid for that? You know, what what does the opportunity look like to grow, or is there, and I'm not just talking about like, can you go, online in a portal and take a class on like real opportunity to grow,
Yeah.
to do interesting jobs, to go maybe to a training, is it you go away to a training once every 2 years? It doesn't have to be every year, every 6 months, but is there investment in the growth of the team? Um, and is the business run, fairly well? And I think, again, you can ask some intelligent questions and things like that. But I would say, so just take into account those things before, you're gonna get itchy at like the next dollar, right? The
Mhm.
next dollar isn't necessarily the thing that's going to solve your problem. And then I'd say the other thing, tagging on to Brian, is um, if you didn't get along with the owner, and then you didn't get along with the owner, and then you didn't get along with the owner, and then
Yeah.
you didn't get along with the owner, like at some point you have to
Yeah.
look at yourself and say, how am I part of this equation as well? I am
Oh,
not saying that I have gotten along with every boss. Believe me, I have left jobs because of bosses. I have also gone to jobs because of bosses. But I would say, if there is, two pieces of information, or 2 points of data is a line and 3 points of data is a trend, like start
mhm.
looking and making sure that you are doing all of the right things as well. Ask for feedback. If you get feedback and you don't like how you got the feedback, say that, like, I
Yeah.
didn't appreciate getting that feedback in front of the whole team. Next time, if you think I'm doing something wrong, could you, like, don't run out and quit on a Friday afternoon.
Mhm.
Like, those types of things. I think those are the things that we see as really red flags when you're trying to, when Brian's saying why. At some point we have to say, well, gosh, it's been 5 years,
Yeah.
not, so we got to think about that. So those are the other 2 points I say I'd put on top of what Brian said.
And I'll tell you, lots of technicians um, do that. We chase the dollar. But we always had that saying. I know I learned it way back when. $100 an hour, especially from, again, the flat rate perspective, is $100 an hour times 0 hours is still zero.
Yeah.
And I see, well, my guess that just was I had last week, who his part two will drop on Tuesday. He left a job where he was at like 36 an hour hourly rate to go for 45 flat rate. And he was like, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to do all, it did not work out for that young man. Right. So you got to always keep it, compare apples to apples, not pineapple to bananas, because there's completely two different things. The other dynamic is, yeah, you have to own it. When I sit down with an interview and people ask me, I'll be like, listen, I'm not always the easiest one to coach, the easiest one to get along with. I'm a Scorpio and I'm a twin. So what makes
Oh,
it even worse
wow.
is it's like,
Double dipping.
I always have a measuring stick of comparison. I always know how one was treated. I expect to be treated exactly the same, no different, right? Like you. So expectations in me are big. So I'll tell people flat out, I will challenge sometimes when you say to me, what you're giving me as what you think is constructive criticism. I don't hear the first C. I just hear the criticism, right? And I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to bring the third C in and go, hey, what about this? And I'm not saying people take that as insubordination. It's not insubordination. It's just the more we do this and the more we get exposed to different employers, we see things that work other places, right? And we bring it in. Like there's lots of dealer techs that have stayed within the brand, moved from that store to this store. They did things at this store this way, and it worked really well. There was no waiters, or there was a limit on waiters, blah blah blah. We can use that example. And you come into some other place and they go, "That's not going to work here." If you immediately discredit it just because it's like, "Well, I'm a manager and you're a technician, so like, why? The information goes this way; it doesn't go like that." If people come at with that attitude, the tech's not bringing you a complaint. They're bringing you, hey, did you know what goes on over there? Because the reality is, in lots of communities, we don't know what goes on in another shop, right?
Yeah.
We sit in our little bubble. Lucas taught me that. You get in your bubble and it's an echo chamber, and you think you're the only one facing the problem. You're the only one doing everything right, and it's still not working. Why is that? Must be broken. Well, it's not broken. You're just so closed off to how somebody else is doing it. And so I'll challenge when owners that are listening to this, when a technician comes to you and says, hey, we did something like this way, don't immediately go, well, if it really worked, you'd still be there. No, that's not what they're saying. They're just saying, we didn't do free diag and it worked really well. Or, we didn't have 200 waiters with no appointments and no, like, it really worked. Yeah. You do stuff like that, just be open to the input, because the wonderful thing about the internet now is that as much as we want to keep different groups where it's like, okay, shop owners talk over here, technicians talk over here, everybody still knows what's going on in all places, right? I think back to when COVID started, there was a dealership that had all their technicians on a guarantee. And this dealership, as soon as the COVID hit, they immediately took all the technicians' guarantee away, gone, just like that. And it made, pretty much within our industry anyway, made national news. Like, this poor lady's business got dragged through the mud, because it wasn't just in the fact that how she did it or what she did, but how she did it. And, the first person technician that kind of asked the question, she terminated him on the spot, just like that. Done. Wow. Well, it hit a Facebook group that I was in and it just exploded to where she had to like close down her Facebook account, get out of the whole thing, because it was blowing up. Yeah. So it wasn't to say that like they were a bunch of crybabies, but like, and again, COVID scared a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Totally. I get it. But all of a sudden, I don't think she understood the power of what a whole lot of other people that were scared to death, technicians that were worried about it. When you do something, you put yourself out there. Though she was very prominent. So when you put yourself out there, all of a sudden, look out, because it's on the internet. You're not safe if you don't want to be safe, right? Like, it's all in how you handle it. I don't claim to be proud of it, but it showed me back then the power of what online can do in terms of uniting people into whatever you want to call it at the time, a fixed enemy or whatever. It was unification. It was really cool to see. So yeah. I don't know what became of it, where they are now. I mean, that's just like anything else on the internet. Here today, gone tomorrow. But it was a powerful thing to see. It was really something. So it changed. COVID changed the dynamic of how a lot of shops run.
Yeah. Well, I would add, I guess, going back to the constructive criticism and conflict, and if you add a different C and you change it to curious, if folks are just a little bit more curious about that reaction, instead of thinking it's like a insubordination, whatever the reaction is, and the woman's reaction is an example, as she had been curious and really asked a couple of questions about why he was frustrated and what he was scared of and all of those types of things. And same thing, if someone's giving you constructive criticism, they're intending it that way to be constructive, and you're, if you change that to curious, I think it changes the dynamic a little bit, right? Yeah. It changes that dynamic. And if you're asking why instead of directing what or how, it just changes the dynamic a little bit. And I think that it achieves what you're trying to achieve, which is, this, we all have to work together. This is a people business. This is a relationship business. And if all we do is conflict and we aren't curious about the why underneath whatever the thing is, the reaction, the people are scared of COVID, they're changing my pay, like all of that. If we respond with curiosity first, I bet it solves a lot of those explosion problems, or where somebody went, viral on the internet for the wrong reason and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's interesting to just flip that just a little bit, and it might help some of those issues.
Brian, when you were a tech, what was your struggle with the management in place or whatever? Like what really set you off? Can I ask?
Well, there was honestly, I don't know of any like key things that
Mhm.
really.
He's so easygoing. Like, he's a hard one to ask. If you asked
Really?
me, I am like a firecracker. So if you asked me, I could tell you 27 things, but Brian's is like, he's so easygoing.
I could tell you the name of the customer and the color of the
Oh my
car
gosh.
I quit jobs over. I'm
I,
not kidding. I can
I'm
tell
like
you.
you.
Yeah, because it's like I'm so wrapped up in whatever it was, and then when it again, it comes down to, it doesn't come down to pay, it comes down to value, right? You didn't pay me the time. I did the brake inspection and you didn't pay me for the job because of some BS reason,
Right.
or I went out and fixed the car, or it's I'm sorry, it's not broken under warranty. That's exactly how the car is supposed to function. I hate it. You don't like it. I don't like it. I drove 45 minutes. I told you, I confirmed it. Here's 3 bulletins that show you don't fix it, blah, 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 blah. And they don't pay. I can tell you those customers' names and why I quit, because they didn't pay me. Right. So for you to be so easygoing and just go like, so what was the hardest dynamic then in the shop for you?
I think the other techs,
Okay.
we're not all the same, right?
Yes.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Getting along with everybody, because I mean, let's face it, we're there at the shop more than we're at home most of the time. So 7 days a week back in the day, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the personality conflicts, I think, would be, finding the guys that you work well with, helping each other. That's a big thing too.
So did you run into that obstacle? Is that they didn't want it to, like, I've been accused of that, like locking out, like gatekeeping information, and I've made that, people have heard that episode where I talked about that in length, about how I had to donate so much to get that knowledge that I wasn't going to just share it with anybody. You know what I mean? And it's an unpopular opinion in here, but I mean, like, if I see a tech that's doing it, I don't fault him for it. You know what I mean? Like, it depends on the dynamic that the shop is in, as crazy it is. If it goes back to a heavy incentivized and he's got that nugget, or let's talk about the other thing. If he's got that tool that makes that job easy, he's the only one with the tool. I look at it as like, if I'm the only one that's got a scan tool in this shop that will read other makes and models, I want all those other makes and models. So I was the tech that always had like a ton of, I would buy the tool that I needed. I would buy the scan tool that I needed. So I was always it wasn't like I just said, nah, go, take off. I'm not going to lend it to you. But it was very begrudgingly sometimes that I had to do that, where it's like, because you would get the advisor that would come along and just needle you down and be like, can't you just lend them the tools so we can get this car done? Well, can't we just like book the car in so that like I do them all? Because I'm the one with the tool anyway, right? Or why don't you buy the tool so that we can all share in the wealth, That was, so when I see that dynamic of the information gatekeeping, there's the second side to that story or that argument that is not always talked about. And, it's one of those things where I look at like other people and I was always somebody that in my business, in my industry, I was going to invest in myself. I was going to learn how it worked. I was going to take the training after hours that I could get. I was going to buy the tool to make the job faster, because that's how you make money. You turn hours, you fix cars. That's how you make money. And when I see other people that didn't want to invest, at the time, it was like, oh, piss on that guy. Like, I mean, why? He won't. Now, as I age and I realize everybody's got different things going on, sometimes they just can't afford to. Now, some people just flat out don't want to. I've worked with lots of techs. They want to make do with $1,000 worth of tools for their whole career, and that's it. The younger generation coming in, it's like, I want a brand new car at 22 years old making a car payment. I don't want to be making a car payment equivalent into a toolbox every month or tools. Right. And I just like, because like 20 years ago, that was a dead end. That was an obstacle in your career if you had that attitude. Today, I love that we see so many shop owners talking about, well, I'm going to buy a tool set for my young hires. Like, I think that's fantastic. And it goes back to, like you're saying, when I see people that have worked for a shop that had that and they still quit, I'm like, are you nuts? Like, do you not realize that now you need to go and spend $6,000 on tools? Yeah. To go work for this employer because it was provided for you at the last place. I think it
goes back to total compensation, right?
Right.
It's a bigger picture. It's just one of those things you gotta ask. And I agree. I think there are things that you can negotiate and talk about too. Whether it's a tool allowance, whether it's a once a year purchase, whether you know, all of those types of things. Like again, I think there's a lot of power in the hands of the technicians to be
Yeah.
asking for those things as benefits of their job, or as, I mean, really tools, like technically, and both literally and figuratively, the tools to do their job. So I think that there's a lot of negotiating power. I'm not saying everyone should go out tomorrow and go ask for the $10,000 thing. But I do think it is important. I think that thinking about it more holistically rather than, again, the dollar per
Mhm.
hour, but rather, am I being empowered to make the most dollars possible when it's all said and done? I think that's a really good point. I do understand the, like, hey, I put in the blood, sweat, and tears on this thing, so I
Mhm.
don't know that I want to like come readily off it. I totally understand that. I think that's that would be hard. That would be like somebody saying to me, I live in finance and HR and things like that, like, hey, can I just like borrow your computer? Like,
Yeah.
ah, I don't think you can. Like, there's a lot of stuff on that that's pretty important. So I would have a hard time with that also. So I think, if people aren't going to invest early in their career, there are also tons of ways to do it. Brian can like speak to this better than I can. Like, there are giveaways and sponsorships and
Yeah.
schools and like go find a place where you can get a free toolbox, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like if you're willing to show some interest in some things like that, there are lots of opportunities to like go sign up for that raffle or that mailing list or whatever, and you never know. So
Yeah, a lot of your parts vendors are doing,
Yes.
buy 30 brake pads, you get a Milwaukee tool for free.
Mhm.
Um, you know, going back to the apprentice thing, have those a lot of your I'll plug it, Napa Auto Parts.
Yeah.
They have an apprentice program for their auto care centers, and it's great. It's a $2,000 toolbox full of tools.
Yep.
So, and again, don't limit yourself on looking at that dollar, chasing the dollar. Don't forget
we
about
want you to make
work.
the dollars. We want you to make
Absolutely.
all the dollars. We will support you in trying to make all the dollars. But Brian's point.
Yeah, just quality of life too. I mean, right? So you're going to go across the street, work 80 hours a week,
Yeah.
only turn 40 for $10 more, like to your point earlier. Whereas across the street where you were, you've got a consistent paycheck. You've got cars coming in. You're working 4 or 5 days a week. So just always keep that in mind.
Yeah. And when I was so my longest tenure at the dealer was probably my best tenure at any dealer, for no arguments about it. It was the best way that I was compensated, opportunity, the whole thing. It was of, the finely oiled machines that most dealerships can be. It was the best in terms of finely oiled machine. The culture was really good. Like, it's the only dealer I've ever worked at, only workplace I've ever worked at, that 10 years later, we still talk. You know what I mean? And we used to say at the time, it's like, we're all like POWs in the same camp, like, I mean, but I think at the time, and going back now, we all look at it and we're like, those were good times. It felt terrible at the time. Like, it really did. Like, it was the stress and this new manager is going to suck. And your parts person that you just hired, Dean, he's terrible. Like, you need to get rid of that guy. Now we look back and we go, oh my God, like, we were so fortunate to be where we were. And I think it stands out because some of us stayed there a really long time. Now there's only one of us left that is still at that dealer, and he's been there 17 years, and he's going to be a lifer. There's just no question about it. It's in his personality, and he's comfortable, and he's being treated well, and all that, and that's good for him. We all moved on, but we took some really key lessons from there, good and bad, that, like, well, for instance, what was my parts manager? He's now a fixed op manager for several dealers in one of the largest dealer groups in my province. Like, he has really worked up. And when you go back to why did he hit that height? Because he always had the personality, even when he was just the manager of one department in a dealer, that it was like you could go to him with any problem. When he said he would do his best to rectify it, he did. He genuinely brought the effort. He genuinely brought the care. I mean, he was an outstanding manager then, and it's great to see him hit that level. Technicians I've seen, it's a different thing. Like, we have a different trajectory in this industry, and sometimes it's like, because the technology moves so fast, and then I know that I only have, a window where my body can really, really produce. Yeah. And then it's like, I'm not going to be able to hump those heavy line work jobs that I used to do. I can't yank a transmission in 45 minutes, that kind of stuff. So I have to develop my brain so that it's like I become that guy that can solve the complex problem. That's tough. Like, do you guys, when you're placing, and Kat, I know you got to go, but Brian and I can probably continue on with this. When you've got people, do you look at their certain ages and experience levels as to they would be a better fit for this shop versus that shop?
Yeah. So, we operate currently in the US. I know Canada's got a lot of like HR types of laws. So we follow all of the appropriate laws and all of that from a, age discrimination and things like that. What I would say we consider is we have conversations about why people are looking, right? Mm-hmm. And the conversations about why people are looking when the door gets cracked open to, I'm tired. I'm in my mid 50s. I've been doing this for 30 years. And then the door is open for us to have a little bit more conversation about, okay, well, where would you, like, what would good look like to you, that type of thing. So I think those are the key points that, it's important that we are having relationship conversations with the candidates and asking the why. And it's okay to say, like, man, I've been doing this for 30 years. My body's tired. If we know that, then we can match with a shop and we have lots of shops that they would love to have an experienced person who, can do some diag, some remote stuff, some teaching. Like there's lots of opportunity to continue your career without, necessarily having to be the guy with the wrench under the car in the car. So Brian and I know the recruiting team have a lot of those conversations. We do want to be as honest and clear as possible about culture and all of that. We placed an awesome technician in a shop that the shop was uber competitive, had, a little bit of a younger crew, lots of KPIs and metrics and targets. And, the technician, I think, would have come around, but like, he just wasn't where he wanted to be at that point in his career. So we helped, find a different situation. So, but yeah, I think we consider as much as we can consider that makes sense. And again, trying to match culture and fit on the job as well. And we do offer some stretch candidates. We call our shops and say, like, hey, I don't know, this guy's coming from doing a lot of similar type jobs. He'd probably be a stretch, but I think you got to ask a little bit about his ability to learn or his desire to, that kind of thing. So we coach both sides of, like, let's pull what's really under this out and make sure that we feel good about the match. So
right. Are you going to ASTA, Kat?
Is that Raleigh?
That's Raleigh.
I will likely run up there. Okay. I'm gonna preview. That's Lisa's birthday weekend.
Yeah.
So she will definitely be there. So if anybody runs into Lisa, it's her birthday weekend. So I may run up there because it's just a few hours away from me.
And then, did you say you're going to Apex?
I am not going to be at Apex this year. Last year I went to SEMA and swung through Apex, but I'm going to hold down the fort at home while all the customer facing folks go and chat with you guys about all the cool things.
All right, going to put a pin in the conversation right there on the Jaded Mechanic with Kat and Brian from Promotive. Really interesting stuff. Pretty crazy what Promotive can do for you as a technician looking for a job. Next week, Kat steps aside and Brian and Jeff continue their conversation about the industry and all the things that Promotive can do for repair shops. That's next week on Jaded Mechanic. Hope you can listen.
Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10mm, and we'll see you all again next time.